It is our third attempt at ensuring that Nigerians have all the information they need. They need to know about federal government's efforts to recalibrating credit scheme in Nigeria. Let's remind you that in April, President Bola Tinubu approved the launch of the first phase of the consumer credit scheme in Nigeria. The scheme will enable qualified Nigerians to have access to credits to enable them afford houses, cars, financing for their businesses and other socioeconomic activities that make life more abundant as obtained in advanced societies. It will also allow Nigerians to live a good life while repaying for their credits gradually over the years. This time on Politics Tonight, let's speak with Engineer Uzoma, MD CEO, Nigerian Consumer Credit Corporation, on the benefits inherent in the scheme and how you can access it. Good evening to you, Engineer. Thank you so much for joining us on the program, and welcome to Politics Tonight.
Thank you, Olajumoke. It's a pleasure to be here.
Right. So let me first congratulate you on your appointment. I mean, how does it feel being able to serve your country, especially in this capacity as the MD CEO of this very critical agency?
It's quite surreal, and it's always a privilege to serve. I am very grateful to Mr. President Bola Tinubu, for finding me fit to serve the country in this capacity, and we will give it all we can, everything we have, to make it work.
Right. So from the briefing we have about your role as the MD CEO of this agency, the President expects you to bring to bear your wealth of experience in finance and technology, as well as your record in driving financial interventions across Nigeria. In this new role, I mean, in order to expand access to credit to all classes of Nigerian citizens, while promoting financial inclusion and enhancing the quality of life of the Nigerian people as they access the tangibles of prosperity. How has it been transitioning from the private sector to now serving in the Bola Tinubu administration? How do you also define the goals ahead of you?
So it's not that different from the private sector. It's just the scale of impact that one has to make now is a lot bigger. Bear in mind that Mr. President has been talking about this for getting to 2 decades now, even more than that. While he was governor of Lagos State, he's quite particular about this issue of people having a better, higher quality of life by accessing consumer credit. Because one, of course, it means that you can get things that enable you to live a higher quality life now, and then you can pay for it over time. This is something that is not uncommon in most other economies that are functioning, and as our economy as well is this big, it is something that every Nigerian actually deserves. And so the idea is, why would I wait till I'm 70 or 60 to save up to buy a car or a house when I can have one when I'm 35 and live for 35 years having a house or having a car and still paying with the same livelihood? So the task is very clear. The second point is that this is a major way to stem the issue of corruption, because again, the pressure, think about it, we are all socially active beings who act in our best interest. And a lot of times, corruption is about incentives. So people want to amass a lot of money now so that they can acquire things that they need to have a better quality of life. And then the temptations are there. But if you don't have to pay for a house, everything up front, I mean, these are fundamentals of just credit as a way to improve the quality of life. And the third is that it catalyzes industry. What that means is that because there is more money, people are able to access credit to pay for things. It means that those who are making the things now have just not just many more customers, but also just a larger volume of orders. So you see that you go from this rudimentary cash and carry economy to an economy that is powered by credit. The US GDP is only a third of the amount of consumption that happens in the country. In other words, the consumption in the country is twice the size of the GDP, and think of it as GDP as a proxy for their income. It means that all the money people make in the US, they spend 2 times that amount. They consume and live a lifestyle that is about 2 times that amount. In Nigeria, we just have a 14% extra in terms of quality of life. So the idea here, and this is something the President has been particular about, is that we can improve the quality of lives of people to stem corruption, and 3, catalyze industry with consumer credit. And I'm just an appointee that he has found fit to deliver this mission.
Fantastic. All right, congratulations once again. So let's get to the core issue for tonight, and that is President Bola Tinubu's desire to make life softer for Nigerians and also boost economic activities through the scheme. I mean, on two different occasions, the special advisor to the president on media and publicity, during Galali, has been here on the program to prepare our minds ahead of the first phase of the scheme.
Right.
But as the MD CEO, let's hear from you directly. Talk to us about how this credit ecosystem will deliver to Nigerians the much desired, robust and sustainable economic structure.
Absolutely. So first things first, maybe I'll talk about how the consumer credit scheme will run, or what the Consumer Credit Corporation's business is. The first thing is that we have to fix or strengthen the credit infrastructure of the country. And what I mean by that is, today there's about 35 trillion naira that is being lent by the financial institutions, that is the banks, the microfinance banks, what you would call the fintechs, but they're also microfinance banks, and lending houses in general, about 35 trillion naira, according to the CBN, being lent to people in consumer credit, meaning enable people to buy vehicles or homes or personal household items or consumption in general. But for it to feel like there's consumer credit in the country, for it to be widely available, half of Nigerians having access to consumer credit, we need close to 180 trillion naira in lending. Now, the financial institutions, that is the banks, those institutions that do lending already, they have the capital. The capital exists in Nigeria. It's just afraid. It's afraid of getting lost because there's a lack of trust. You don't know, there's a lack of data to be able to assess people's credit worthiness, and they don't know who to lend money to and who not to lend money to. So we need first to strengthen the credit infrastructure of the country. And to say it in simpler terms, it means that every Nigerian who is commercially active or economically active will have a credit score. And a credit score that is a true reflection of every lending that they do, how they paid back, when they paid, what they paid. Similar to, and I tell an anecdote of just briefly, an anecdote of my life in the US. I am actually a product of consumer credit because I went to the university in America, and I left Nigeria to go to university, and I got a credit card for about $1,000. And that credit card, because I was judicious with paying that credit every single month for 4 years as a student, when I left university and I just got a job, before I started my job, I went to a Toyota dealership and I got a brand new Toyota that cost almost $40,000 based on the credit history that I had built. So there is a system that can be trusted to verify whether I am good credit. And based on that, I was able to access a Toyota, better quality of life, etc. And the story goes on and on and on and on and on. Never bought a phone, even when I went to graduate school, same thing, all on consumer credit, because I was a judicious credit user and I paid my credit. That's the same thing we want to replicate for every Nigerian who is commercially active. So first we fix the credit infrastructure. The second is that while we're doing that, the banks and microfinance institutions and lenders in general are already doing some kind of lending for consumer credit. That's why we have 35 trillion naira already out there. And we want to get to 180 trillion in consumer credit lending. Now, to do that, we are going to support them on that journey, even as they currently are lending in whatever methods that they are using, not having that infrastructure as strengthened, not having Nigerians having a reliable, dependable credit score, which we are going to get. But while they are doing their lending today, we are going to support them with wholesale capital, meaning if you want to do more and you have a track record of consumer credit and show that you can lend to Nigerians, enable them access these lifestyle items, livelihood items, and you want to expand your portfolio, we can give you capital to do that. That's part one. The second part is guarantees, credit guarantees. That means if you don't need capital, but you are currently lending your money, you want to do more with your money, especially you want for certain targets that we have. For example, we want to buy Nigerians to buy more made in Nigeria goods. So if you're willing to lend money to people to do more of those things, then we are going to share the risk with you in credit guarantees. So you must have heard about the 100 billion naira capital. That's already, our fund is growing even much more beyond that. And the goal is to be able to support the financial ecosystem and financial institutions to do more lending today. And then the third, which is the last of our goals, is to now do a cultural reorientation around credit. In other words, we have been raised to believe that credit is a bad thing, that you go borrow money when you are in dire straits. Whereas credit is actually an enabler of a high quality of life. Your quality of life doesn't have to be constrained to that income that comes into your pocket, because you're going to be earning that income for a long time. but you can access a quality of life today that can be sustained by your income over time. So there is a cultural reorientation around credit, around people protecting their credit scores when they have it, around people borrowing and paying back, and around just working with the financial ecosystem to be able to get more people to not just access consumer credit, but have responsible credit. And this is something that this is a third line of work. So again, fix the credit infrastructure or strengthen the credit infrastructure so that every Nigerian has a credit score, and all credit, all lending is written to the infrastructure, working with the credit registries and credit bureaus. And then secondly is doing wholesale lending and credit guarantees to financial institutions. So we have to be in close partnership with the financial institutions. We don't want to lend to Nigerians directly. We want Nigerians to get familiar with accessing credit where they normally would access credit, and just make it easy for financial institutions to do that. I'll say this last thing about financial institutions. There's a reputation that financial institutions have a bad rep, because there is a reputation for not lending to Nigerians, instead buying treasury bills or buying FX. And we don't think bankers or microfinance banks or institutions in general are bad people. They want to do impactful work, and they want to give Nigerians credit to better their lives. But the challenge is that they just don't have a system and infrastructure that they can trust to make those decisions. So we are here to make that happen so that everybody can have a fulfilling job and a fulfilling life.
All right. I mean, we'll come back to this cultural reorientation, because there are some Nigerians who are saying there seems not to be a lot of awareness on this scheme. So many Nigerians are still out there who do not know that there is something out there for them to benefit from. But, I mean, in a statement released by the presidency, the president had said eligible Nigerians should apply or register before May the 15th. I mean, that's in just 2 days. First, what makes one eligible, and what steps can eligible Nigerians take to benefit from the scheme?
That's a very important question, Olajumoke. Thank you. The first is every commercially active Nigerian who has an income is eligible to receive consumer credit. Now, you are going to be assessed by your financial institution, which is why we have decided to take it out in phases. And the reason for that is that we are almost like building I make an analogy of building an airplane while you are flying it. So because we are working with the financial institutions, and not when I say financial institutions, I mean wherever it is that you currently do your financial transacting, as long as they do consumer lending. But we are starting up with the federal civil servants, and then we cascade down to civil servants in general, and then we cascade down to sort of gig workers and what you call the informal economy, and of course white collar workers who have a job, before we go to the general public. And this is because we are on a journey of establishing trust with the financial institutions and establishing trust with the population, and we're starting from those who have sort of a predictable, or would I say measurable, income. So that means that while people have indicated interest in receiving the consumer credit scheme and accessing consumer credit, the next phase of it will be now an interface between people who have applied and their financial institutions. But we are very clear about starting with the civil service. And there's a number of reasons for this. First is obviously the more regimented and predictable income of the civil service. But more important than that is that they are also a backbone of what I say of the society in terms of being able to manage sort of social services and the government. And we want to use that as a test bed, first of all. And there are also structures that allow for lending to civil service. However, we have engaged a wider range of stakeholders, cooperatives, informal economy, traders, artisans, farmers, and these structures where they borrow money from are also the financial structures that we're going to use to get consumer credit to them. But bear in mind, and I'd say this again, that everybody who is going to be a beneficiary of the consumer credits corporation or the scheme in general would be going through the financial institutions, because the point is that we want to build that culture and that habit